Welcome to the Underground, my little underground with Peter A.
It's My Little Underground. I'm Peter A. Today on the show we have Jack Harkins from Manchester's own Autocamper. And Jack is on the show to talk about the band's debut album, What Do You Do All Day? And he also talks about avoiding being pigeonholed, honest optimism as a theme of his songwriting, lessons learned from touring, his perspective of the UK music scene, and so much more with Jack Harkins from Autocamper on My Little Underground.
My little underground.
All right, Jack, thank you so much for coming on My Little Underground. I appreciate you coming through, talking up all things Autocamper.
Yeah, no worries. Cheers for having me.
Yeah, anytime. So, with again, one of the leading singles to What Do You Do All Day, you said it was your foray out of cassette pop. Can you expand on that and what you meant by that?
I don't know whether I said cassette or bedroom, but probably closer to bedroom.
Yeah.
We wanted to get away from the cliche of sort of just like twee stuff, and also we'd kind of like we'd recorded like three singles at that point, all in really interesting ways with interesting people. And it just felt like time that we wanted to sort of do stuff we were doing justice because we felt like we got better at writing stuff as well. Um, and the bedroom pop thing's good. Like, don't get me wrong, but I feel like it just felt like we needed to progress a bit as a band, almost, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. So as far as cliches are concerned with Twee or the C86 jangle stuff, like what are some specific cliches that you're trying to avoid?
Um, I don't. It's hard to say because I like all that kind of stuff. It's just like um once I've got a weird thing where I feel like if we ever get pigeonholed into something, I really feel like we have to leave that almost because a lot of people were just kind of like it. All the reviews for the singles all said the same thing, and it was just sort of like I think anybody who makes something or is creative wants to keep moving almost. And that's kind of the point of it. But I guess it's like I don't know, like just where to get away from too much of a lo-fi sound. Like we didn't want sort of like big, sort of grand, not human sounding stuff. But I think it was like, yeah, I don't know, like I wanted to try and do justice to the stuff we were doing at that time a bit more and go into somewhere with a bit more of a sort of like view of putting more overdubs on stuff and getting more sort of like making everything sound bigger maybe.
Yeah. I mean, you don't want to get pigeonholed, and also like when you look at some of the those early jangle and C86 stuff, there's really just like a lot of compilations, and maybe an artist will put out a few singles, an EP, maybe an album, and then maybe disappear and do something completely different. So I
Yeah.
could understand why you want to evolve your sound and not be boxed in.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So that being said, trying to move out of this box that, media has been putting you in, how would you kind of elevator pitch the evolving auto camper sound?
Um, so like I think that I got really into like when we were writing the stuff, the period where we were writing the stuff was probably sort of before Summertime came out. I think there's probably bits of it on Summertime, but it's like from my perspective, the guitar sounds that I wanted, the way I was playing was much more like sort of like Ostrich Churchyard era Orange Juice. James Kirk is like one person I really like at that point I was really into. And that was a big sort of reference point for the album. And then people like Bob Collins from The Dentists, that sort of like almost like psychedelic garage rocky stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that sort of like just it was harder to get that sort of thing I guess the way of putting it is sort of like if you go into a studio, it's a bit easier to sort of be like, I want this, and then that's possible, as opposed to like the fun but kind of like time consuming thing of like trying loads of different things to make that work. We went in with a producer, and he kind of really got that idea about stuff. But also like I mean, we were doing. I don't really think we did a lot of overdubs on any of the singles, and on this album, it's like um there's all kinds of stuff on it. There's like Mellotron, there's loads of electrical stuff. Like we dedicated like a few days to just figuring stuff out. We managed to do like a load more stuff with vocals. I mean, I don't do any backing vocals because I like really bad at singing, but Neve like had loads of time to do stuff, and it all like yeah, it feels bigger. It feels yeah, it feels a lot bigger.
Yeah,
Is
yeah, that's
it's you?
great. Very like chamber esque, but you're not exactly going to Carnegie Hall, you know, right?
Yeah, too right. And it's like people that I like are doing that kind of thing on a budget as well. Like people like Light Edit and the Smashing Times are like they're two bands that I really admire and I really like that Combustible Gems album could be a baroque pop album. And like Jazz from the Smashing Times is just like a genius. Like he does it all in his basement and it sounds like the 60s and it's
Yeah,
brilliant. Yeah. So I'm kind of like I'd like us to be more like that almost, I
yeah.
think.
Or like here in the States, there's PLG Magazine. I'm sure you know them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like Joe is doing a lot of different crazy layering of sounds, but keeping this like pop foundation. Can't really
Yeah.
box it in, you know. And they originally were trying to get out of the shoegaze kind of thing, and
Yeah.
being isolated there. So they went ahead and just pivoted and opened up the library for their sonic influences, which is kind of what you're trying to do with Autocamper, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like all the good bands throughout history have done that as well. You
Yeah,
know, like everything that happened in the 60s that went psychedelic was just everything opened up. And then, like, you know, with the better sort of like 70s and 80s stuff, you know, like even bands like The Clash, it's like Sandinista's a great album, you know, stuff like that, where it's like people just go creative and don't sort of just conform to whatever box that they're put in at that point in time, maybe.
yeah, yeah. I feel like there's a lot of like a consistent amount of revivalism in music. I think over the last like maybe 10, 15 years or so. Um, which is fine, but also like you don't necessarily again want to put yourself in like a nostalgic box, you know. So that's why I love seeing artists kind of play with their sonic palette, and what comes out of that is usually just incredible, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So let's talk about proper a little bit, and here is kind of an example of your honest enthusiasm, talking about, you know, seeing life in a positive light, but also not ignoring some of the negativity here. So, with your songwriting, are you thinking about coming across this way with this optimism? And
Yeah,
also, where does optimism go from honest to disingenuous?
that's a good question. I don't know. I think that's probably one of the most optimistic songs I've written, and it all kind of came out of a real experience that I had, and it was almost sort of like I'm a bit like sort of never really. I've been at like doing music for ages, but this is the first time I've done like a pop thing, and yeah, it's like I've kind of said to myself the whole time that I've been trying to learn how to write songs, which I guess everyone still feels like they're learning or whatever. But it's like you've got to be sincere. I think people not only react better to sincere things, but they know when you're kind of being like, you know, if I was gonna write a song, everything's gonna be all right because you're proper. It could be very cheesy, but I feel like I got away with it. Maybe I don't know. But yeah, it's like I write because I'm like probably quite a sad person. It's like I've really it was weird that a happy song came out.
when I'm listening to proper, it's almost like you got your arm over someone's shoulder saying everything's going to be all right. And that kind of optimism can get somebody through some, like a dark period or just kind of spiraling because the world is kind of in a crazy state. But
Mm.
as far as like being proper, like what do you mean by that? Like what is proper?
So, so when I know kind of like that chorus came out of, so when I know who is American, said like, oh, you're always saying proper all the time, and it's like just sort of like, I guess it's a north of England thing maybe.
Yeah.
Uh, it's like yeah, that's proper good that is or whatever, and she was like, oh yeah, you keep saying that, and I was like, that really stuck in my head that I'd never even realized that that was like a vocal tick sort of thing that people have up here.
Yeah.
And I just thought, right, I'll have a chorus like that, then that'll do me. And it just, I was sort of like, I listened to a lot of sort of 60s stuff where like it is almost cheesy, like the Association or the Millennium or whatever, where it's like, the choruses can be really, really simple. Um, yeah, like, I mean, Come On In by the Association is come on in, you're welcome here. It's just like, there's something really like, there's something nice about it. And also the fact that they can have depth with it. And I like the fact that the lyrics are not particularly like, I think I'm still quite self-deprecating in that one, but it's also wrapped in like a nice chorus. I don't know. I try not to like think about it too much if you can't.
No, no, yeah, that's totally cool. Because again, like when I'm listening to Autocamper, yeah, I'm not like totally, taking everything you're saying literally, but I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
the exuberant, lively energy of the music is enough. Like it gets me through it. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like I'm able to enjoy it and kind of piece together what you're saying by just coming across like, okay, this is peaceful. This is just very at peace. You know?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's also like it is sort of I've got my reading of it, and I think I've said this a couple of times before to people in like interviews and stuff, but like I've got my reading of it, and I want other people to have their own experiences with it. It's like any of my favorite songs are definitely to me not what they are to the person who wrote them. It's like you can just go into your own world with stuff, and the fact that you've said that's really like nice for me because it's like you go into your own world with it, and that's fucking brilliant.
Yep.
Like, sorry, I don't know if I can swear.
No, you could. It's fine.
Cool.
Let's talk about your relationship with Slumberland. How did that come about?
So I mean, it's something that's kind of been at the back of my head since we all met. So it was really weird. I was gonna go and watch the Umbrellas in Manchester the first time they came over, when they came over with Sea Blight and
Yeah.
Chime School. Um, and me and Harry already knew each other, and then we went to meet Neve off the back of a website ad we put up in a pub opposite the pub they were playing at. And Harry and Neve didn't go to the gig, but we all met there, and we were like, yeah, Neve's in. And then I went to the gig, and I was sort of like, I had a duffel coat on or whatever, and I've got my haircut or whatever, and Nick just came up and was like, oh man, you look just like Stephen Pastel, and I was like, oh, cheers. And he was like, there's this other kid here as well, and I was like, all right. And he was sort of like, yeah, come and meet him. And they were all just so friendly and lovely, and I enjoyed that album so much, like for months prior. That I was really looking forward to that gig, and then we met those guys, and it just really felt like it was possible for us to do something that wasn't like post punk music, because that seems to be all that happens in Manchester nowadays. And that kind of it put the seed in my head that, and I said to everyone when we were starting, like before we even did a gig, it was like, I want us to be on Slumberland. I think that's where we're going. And through sort of like Jim at Safe Suburban Home did loads of stuff for us, who put out the cassettes before we were on Slumberland. Well, I mean, the first cassette was on Nick's label, Discontinuous Innovations, who like, I mean, that's put me onto so much good like San Francisco music that I would never have heard. Like, I think that's a great label, and more people need to hear about that. Um, but yeah, like I kind of like I knew the Umbrellas. I'd listened to bits of other stuff, but then I just got really like enamored with it. And of course, like there's the whole like historical stuff and like Mike being in Black Tambourine and all that kind of good stuff. But then I met Mike. He came over to watch us playing with Lightheaded about this time last year um, in Manchester, and then I went to Glasgow's Pop that year, and I didn't really know anyone. So Mike was just sort of like, "Oh yeah, come and hang out with us," and we just got along really well. And he's such a sweet guy as well, and it's like it's really nice to work to be on a roster with loads of people that I really genuinely admire the music of, and also to sort of like work with someone who really kind of gives a fuck about shit.
Yeah.
It's really, and it's so much better than like you watch so many people try and go into something where they want to be popular or they want something, and it's like the community aspect of it is it's so amazing. Like, I mean, like I message Nick every week from the Umbrellas. He's one of my favorite people. I mean, we were just on tour with Andy and Chime School. Like, they're just all great people, and and they always seem to just come over. Like every 6 months, there'll be someone else, and you get to hang out with them, and it really feels like it's a proper community, you know.
Yeah, yeah. It's almost like it's Slumberland is connecting artists from like all over the world,
Yeah,
and it's like creating their own little music community, even though everyone's kind of far apart, you know?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, international pop underground is, I believe, what they call it.
Yeah, yeah. It's a great little network, and it's almost like Slumberland as a label function as like a like what a DIY music venue would be,
Yeah,
like all
sure.
these
Yeah,
people in the same house.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So in 2022, when Autocamper was forming, did all of you meet online or just through the Manchester music scene?
No, so I met Arthur at that Umbrellas gig. Me and Harry, we both. Well, yeah, I can't really remember how we met, but I just sort of remember I was at university with like one of his friends, and I kept bumping into him, and we were kind of into the same sort of thing. Um, the pastels got mentioned, and then there were like some contemporary stuff going on in the UK at the moment that we both really liked. Um, and then we thought like, oh, we'll just form like a two-piece band or whatever, and like have a drum machine, and we call that Bremerhaven Auto Terminal. There is an Instagram page somewhere as well. But we didn't really like nothing ever happened with it. And then we kind of just went like, well, should we just like let's get a keyboard player and or someone to just do things that aren't guitars, and then like we'll get a drummer as well. And then so the only person that we actually met online was Neve, and it was like joinmyband.com. I don't know whether there's like a US version of that, but it's like an internet forum where you just sort of like post ads saying like keyboard player wanted or whatever. It kind of feels like I don't really like having that in the I don't like the whole like internet being part of it thing, but it's uh it's a weird way of it coming together, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. Like, way back, like pre-internet, right? Artists would go to their music store or a record store and put up a flyer saying bass player wanted or etc. That's
Yeah.
cool that there's a place online that people can kind of interact, but you would prefer, in a perfect world, so to speak, to like meet people like in like a certain music scene or going to see shows or college or what have you.
Yeah, for
Hmm.
sure. That's the great thing about how like I met Arthur was like we went to a Slumberland gig and I met the drummer for my band. I think like it is like that it works as a DIY venue, like you were saying, it's
Yeah.
like it really is that kind of thing. Um, yeah.
So what made you feel like when you found all the pieces for Auto Camper, what made you feel like these people were the right ones to collaborate with?
We all had good haircuts. Right? Well, I but, yeah, but we all looked cool. Was genuinely quite like it felt like that's a good thing. Um, I think yeah, there's just a sort of like degree of like everyone was willing to sort of be really I mean, Arthur hadn't played drums in years. It like really ramshackle. I think none of us were embarrassed about sort of just being in a room together and being like, let's write some songs that are like at that point we were twee. Like I'll concede that we were twee when we started out and stuff like that. But it was like it was nice because we were all learning together. And I think yeah, like just that attitude. Everyone had that attitude that like we all wanted to be in something that sounded a certain way, sort of, and we all had really different ways of thinking about it. Yeah, sorry, I keep rambling on, don't I? Sorry.
No, yeah, no, it's perfect. It's perfect. So when it came time to go on tour, right, and put an album out, and you guys toured the UK in July, what are some lessons that you've learned from either as people, as musicians, all the places you visited? Like, what are some major takeaways you've gotten from touring?
I think like one cool thing is that there seems to be like a pocket of cool people everywhere you go. Like you just meet loads of people, and you kind of think like places like Norwich, like is anyone gonna turn up to a gig in Norwich? Like and there were some cool people there and stuff like that. I think yeah, what have we learned? You've got to take your showering opportunities when you can. Um, yeah, alone time's a great thing, especially when you're all like sleeping in the same room, like in the same bed as well. Occasionally, like me and Harry had to share a bed on a couple of occasions, and it's just like you just kind of want to be like, I just want to go home now. But then the gig happens and everything's cool, and you get the traveling was fraught. Getting a van, learning to drive and getting a van for sure is like something that we should definitely do because the first half of it we did on trains with like loads of merch, all the guitars, and it was just like the trains in this country are just absolutely ridiculous at the moment, and like just running across London to try and get a train from a different station with loads of stuff, it was like a nightmare. But it was fun.
So it's
But
like these little adventures are kind of what keeps the constant travel and being in close quarters with people. It makes that seem okay to a certain extent.
yeah, for sure. And
Yeah.
it's like there were points in which I were kind of like, oh, I'm feeling tired or whatever. I mean, we also like, I mean, you've got to pace yourself with the drinking and the having fun as well. Um, because that like there were a couple of points where I was just like really hungover, didn't really want to talk to anyone. I get like I'm a really anxious person, and like sometimes I just really need that sort of like alone time. And like I was just sort of like, oh God, I really want to go home. And then I'd sort of think like, well, it's better than working my day job, so that'd kind of keep me going as well.
It's kind of hard to find solace when you're touring, because it's like it's almost like a never-ending group activity. Like, how did you were ever to find alone time on tour?
I mean, like I've just quit smoking, but the
Yeah.
smoking was like I was on like a pack a day or something all week, and it was just like just to get out and go for a walk and have an excuse to be like, right, I'm going for a cigarette. See you in a bit, guys. That kind of thing. But it was like, yeah, I don't know. I spent a lot of time just standing in toilet cubicles for like 5 minutes and just being like, ah, a bit of peace. Not like having not making toilet, but just sort of like just a room with a lock.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so, putting out your first full-length album, um, what do you do all day? Then you put before that string of singles, collection of singles. In that time frame, how do you feel like you've grown as a band?
We definitely have. I think we sound a lot more mature. I'm kind of proud of a few of the songs on the album. Like I don't really. like any of the singles myself. I know other people like them, and that's nice, but it sort of just feels really sort of like it's like looking at what you did when you're in like third year at school or whatever, and it's like, writing a poem or something. Um, it's nice to kind of get all that rubbish out the way to be able to do this. It's the first thing I've been happy with that I've done, I think. Um, and I think like yeah, we've got better ideas, and I'm kind of excited to see what happens next. Just because we've even got like a couple of songs in the set now that we haven't even recorded that are just like stuff we played just on tour, and they sound so much different to the album already. And also, I've got like all these ideas about like what are we going to do next floating around that I'm yet to sort of pin those ideas down and be like, here's a thing we should do yet. But it's exciting, it feels like we're making really good progress, and um yeah, no, it feels good. Yeah.
So like earlier on, you talked about how in Manchester there's like a ton of like post-punk stuff going on. So outside of that, does Manchester have like a thriving DIY scene that you relate to that with music coming out of it that you know you would want to listen to and engage with some of these artists? Or do you just have connections with artists like just throughout the UK?
It's a difficult one. Like Manchester's a really difficult one because there's sort of like tiers to how it works. Like there's real grassroots stuff, and a lot of that's really good. Like there's a guy called Max, who runs a thing called Sweet Face magazine, and they put on gigs in like really sort of like low capacity venues. And he just puts his friends on, and he'll put some interesting stuff on. And sometimes it'll be kind of like um something that's like really, really not that good. And then there'll be stuff that's like amazing. And it's all like, it's all really low budget, and it's proper sort of like DIY. But there's other like anyone there's a lot of really nice people, but there's also kind of like there's sort of one venue that has the monopoly on everything at the moment, like one promoter, and it's I don't know. I think we did quite well in finding a way of being able to get out of Manchester, without sort of like pandering to the current thing, just because like we're not the sound that people like at the moment in Manchester. I don't think like there's not bands like us. We're kind of like the only band that does what we do. Um, but yeah, I think like in terms of nationwide, there's like there's pockets of places that there are loads of really good bands that we have a really good affinity to. Like every time we play in York or Leeds, there's some really good promoters, and there's some like great bands. Like there's a guy called Mikey, and he was in a band called Perspex, and now he's in a band called Vehicle, and they're just amazing. They've just released an album. There's like Captain Starlet, who were on Safe Suburban Home as well. I think Perspex did something on Safe Suburban Home too. But we feel much more of an affinity to that kind of thing, just because it's far less like pretentious than the sort of like Manchester's a bit of a like make it city. People move there to become successful musicians. Um, Whereas I think we're more concerned with like having fun and sort of not making a living. Well, I mean, it'd be nice to make a living out of it, but it's more about kind of just doing the thing creatively than sort of posting thing. We don't have TikTok. That's the thing that sort of like divides the bands, divides us from other bands. But yeah, like places like York, like Glasgow's got some amazing people. Like we played with Radhika, who's Sushil from the Soup Dragons, his daughter. She was amazing. Fraser McCallum up there, he's like doing this really individual sort of like Ivor Cutler meets Jarvis Cocker meets um like postcard records. He's a genius. He's great. But there's so many people, and it really does feel like in the similar way to how we interact with America and people like I mean, like we're not on K Records, but we've got like we play with Sharp Pins and they're lovely guys, and like I said, Smashing Times are like one of my favorite. They're probably my favorite band of all time. And people like that, and everyone's just so friendly, and it feels like there are pockets of people around the world almost that we're kind of like we're in a scene, but it's just not location based. That's maybe the good thing about the internet, isn't it? I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Well said. Well, Jack, I want to thank you so much for coming on My Little Underground to talk up all things auto camper. Anything you got to plug, here's your time.
Um, what are we doing? We're not really doing much. What? Yeah, what's going on? I'd like to say, I don't want them to build the new wharf in Manchester, and I also think, we're playing in Malaga in Spain in November, and just be groovy. And thank you for listening and to me talk shit for 20 minutes or however long it's been. And cheers for having me and asking.
My Little Underground.